Good morning, Veritas scientists. Today is Friday, May 15th, 2020. In Science Today, we're going to be learning about chlorophyll and fall/autumn in New England. So the question I gave you yesterday, which we're going to talk about today, is why do the leaves change color in the fall/autumn in New England? That's where we live. Why do the leaves change colors? And we're going to use what we have been learning about photosynthesis. We're going to learn and kind of review some of the things we talked about way back in like September or October about light. And we're going to put that together to give you a pretty cool lesson. I'm excited about today's lesson. Okay, so let's do some vocabulary first. Chlorophyll, it's a noun, it's a thing. So chlorophyll is the green pigment or the green color that is found in plants. So when you look at a plant and it is green, it is because of the chlorophyll that's being created by the plant. Okay, so chlorophyll makes plants green. Okay, so in Greek, in the language Greek, chloros means green. And phylon means leaf. So chloro, instead of a K, it's a C because of the Greek language, they use K. Chlorophyll, chloro and phylon mixed together, green and leaf, so it means green leaf. So chlorophyll makes leaves green. Okay, so through photosynthesis, we know that the leaves soak in sunlight. They absorb sunlight. All right? And that is when chlorophyll is created and it makes the leaves green. And we're going to learn a little bit about why we see them as being this color green in a minute. Okay, so two more vocabulary words. The word reflect, you should have heard this before. It's a verb. There's some action to it. So to reflect is to bounce off of something. Okay, so if you threw a ball on the wall and it bounced back, it would reflect back. It bounces back. So an example is a mirror reflects light because the light bounces off of it. So to reflect means to literally bounce off. So when you put a light on a mirror, none of it gets soaked into the mirror. It all reflects. It all bounces back to us. Okay, and the third word here that's important is absorb. That's also a verb because there's some action to it. Absorb is to soak up or take in something. So for example, a sponge absorbs water, right? If I put a sponge in water, it's going to soak up all of the water. It's going to absorb all of the water. So these two words are opposites. Reflect means to bounce off. Absorb means to soak up. All right? We'll refer to those words a bunch. Okay, so let's look at these plant parts we've been talking about lately. We know the roots, they take up water and nutrients into the plant. They also anchor the plant into the ground. The stem holds it upright so that that plant can stand up tall and get as close to the sun as possible. And the leaves, their job is to absorb sunlight. Okay, so we're going to be talking a lot about the leaves because that is where chlorophyll is made. That's where photosynthesis happens. Okay, so what happens is the light from the sun, see these arrows, are sunlight. We learned earlier in the year, back in like October, that light travels in straight lines. That's why we have shadows, because if there's something in the way of these lines, those lines go in, the light goes into straight lines. And if there's something in the way, it's just going to be blocked. The light doesn't curve around anything, right? It goes in straight lines. Okay, so the sun comes in straight lines down towards the plants. All right. One other very, very important thing is that when we look at the light from the sun, it looks white to us, right? It might look a little bit yellow to our eyes. It is called white light. Same as the light that comes out of our, like that light right there. Okay, it's white light. Looks a little yellowish, but it is called white light. What white light is white light is all of the colors of the rainbow. Okay, so we can't see them, but in that light that's coming from the sun, so the light outside, or the light that's coming from that, is actually all of the colors of the rainbow. Believe it? Let me tell you a little bit more. Okay, so when those colors, so for example, here's my beat up old mountain bike. It looks orange to me. Jojo thinks it's red, but we're going to call it orange. So what's happening here is the white light that's coming from the windows and coming from that light. It's coming at this in straight lines, right? Every color is being absorbed into this bike except for orange. Orange is reflecting back to my eyes, and I see this bike as being orange. So when you see the color orange, that's the only color that is being reflected back to our eye is the color you see. Every other color gets absorbed into that bike. So if you look at the blue tarp that's underneath it, every color is hitting this tarp. Only blue is getting reflected back to my eye. Every other color is being absorbed into this tarp. Same thing with everything you see. This red is being reflected back to my light. Every other color of the rainbow is being absorbed into this pen. Okay, so picture if I put this pen downstairs in the basement where there's no light. What color would it be? It wouldn't have any color. It would be black. Go ahead, take something from your house. Go take a bike. Go put something in a closet where it's dark and stand in there. There's no color. There is no color without light. And that's why. Is because the light that's coming are all the colors of the rainbow. All of the colors get absorbed except for the color you see. That's the color that is being reflected back to our eye. All right? So what happens with plants is every color of the rainbow except green is being absorbed. So every color is being absorbed into this plant. We see it as green because green is the only color that's being reflected back to our eye. Every other color is being absorbed in. So all those colors that are being absorbed by this plant, the plant is using that color and that light to create photosynthesis, to create glucose, which is sugar that this plant will use to grow. So every color is being absorbed, and all that light that's being absorbed is being used by the plant. It's really cool. So the plant is using all of that color to then have photosynthesis happen and to make its own food. Let me just plug in my phone real quick. Okay, so the color we see is the one being reflected, and it's green for plants. Okay, with me so far? You guys are doing a good job. Really complicated stuff. You might have to watch this again. Okay, so my question here says, why do the leaves change color? Why do they stop being green in the fall or the autumn? That's the name of the season. In New England, that's where we live. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of things. So this is the sunrise today. I looked on my phone. The sun rose today. That means it came up and started being light at 5:27 this morning, a.m. The sunset tonight is going to be at 8:05 p.m. So if you count from 5:30 to 8:05, it's about 15 hours of sunlight. So the sunlight today on May 15th is about 15 hours of sunlight. Now let's think about October. All right, it starts getting dark earlier. It stays dark earlier, or it stays dark later in the morning. So picture being in school in October. The sun doesn't rise until 7:30 in the morning. That's 2 hours later than it does now. We'll get to school. We start school at 7:25. It's still dark out when we start school. You remember that? So the sunrise is later. It's about 7:30 in October. But sunset is earlier. Today it's going to be after 8 o'clock. Think about October. We get home from school and it's already getting dark. It gets dark at about 4:30. So there's about 9 hours of sunlight in October. So now there's 15 hours of sunlight. In October, there's only 9 hours of sunlight. So that's 6 less hours of sunlight than there is now. So what happens is less chlorophyll is being created that makes these plants green. Okay? So since there's so much more sunlight now, that's why things are growing and becoming greener and greener and bigger because photosynthesis is happening, chlorophyll is being created, and that is making the green color that we then have reflected to our eyes so that we see green. Okay, so in October, the leaves start to change colors and then they fall because they're not getting enough sunlight. Okay, so what happens is they're not getting enough sunlight to have photosynthesis happen. So photosynthesis stops. it is not happening anymore. I'll put it in capital letters. Photosynthesis stops. And now, those leaves don't have enough sunlight to have photosynthesis happen, so it's not able to create its own food anymore. And what happens is those leaves lose their green pigment, they lose the chlorophyll, they lose their green color, and they start to die. So the leaves begin to die. So that looks beautiful to us. People come from all around the world to come to New England to look at the beautiful leaves changing color in the fall. What's really happening, guys, are those plants are dying. The leaves are dying. There's not enough sunlight anymore like there is now, 15 hours of sunlight. Plenty of sunlight for photosynthesis to happen, for chlorophyll to be created, for this plant to be able to make its own food. Now with only 9 hours of sunlight, those plants and those trees, they start to die. And the leaves, they start dying, they change beautiful colors, and then what happens a couple weeks later is they fall off, they land on the ground, and me and Jojo go and jump in piles of leaves, right? Those leaves are dead. And that's part of the trees and plants life cycle. Okay, so pretty cool. So the reason they change color is because they stop getting enough sunlight. Photosynthesis stops because there's not enough sunlight, not enough color is being absorbed, and it's not able to make its own food anymore. Then those leaves begin to die, and they don't come back until the next spring when the sun is shining again. All right, lots of information here today. Watch this video again. If you are confused, send me any questions that you have. I think this is really, really interesting stuff. So give yourself some snaps. I appreciate your attention. I hope everybody has a great weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday. All right, bye.